Eric Kraus pumps once, is in trouble, eludes a tackle, gets out of the end zone. He's to the 5, he's to the 10, Kraus to the 15, out across the 20, Kraus to the 25, out across the 30, 35, 40, look out, he could go, he's to the 40, he's to the 30, he's to the 20, he's to the 10, he's all the way!
Totally unbelievable.
Ball right on the end. The snap is down. The kick is up. The kick is on its way, and the kick is good! He bangs it in there. 57 yards out of school record to put the Huskers in front, 33-31.
To the near side. Kellogg gets a shotgun snap. Final play of the game. Ron waiting for the wideouts to get downfield. Launches the throw down toward the goal line. Going up. Ball tipped in the air. Caught! Touchdown! Jordan Westerkamp! Nebraska wins the game on the final play of the contest! Oh, baby!
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! What a scene in Lincoln, baby! Woo!
Deep for Nebraska. Here's Wiley's kick. It's high. It holds up there. Rogers takes the ball at the 30. He's hit and got away. Back upfield to the 35, to the 40. He's to the 45. He's to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 20, to the 10. He's all the way home. Holy moly. Man, woman, and child did that. Put him in the aisle. Johnny the Jet Rogers just tore them loose from their shoes.
Well, how is everybody doing? Welcome to 5 Points of Contact. I don't have a guest. No, I don't know. I said 7. We'll do this for a little bit, and we'll see if he shows up. But, it is Wisconsin week. And, okay, Richard Fitzwell shows up with @CornNation. FYI, your Discord link on the screen is expired. Yeah, I need to go back and look at that. Brian set that up, and now he's gone. And I got to figure out the Discord thing sooner or later. We are here to talk about Wisconsin, but I think the news of the day with regarding to Nebraska football is that Iowa's Cooper DeJean is out for the season. And you've heard Todd and I talk about him before. I think he's one of the top 5 players in the nation. He's certainly a guy that can wreck a game. There's been a big argument now on Twitter with people, with people saying that the Iowa fans are like, if Cooper DeJean was in last year's game, if you remember last year's Iowa game, he went out early and Trey Palmer torched the Iowa Hawkeyes, and we won that game and kept them from winning the West, and it was beautiful. And there are people saying, well, if Cooper DeJean was in that it's still in that game, that wouldn't have happened. There's other people saying, well, they already copped 3 balls before Cooper DeJean went out of the game. I think Cooper DeJean was a guy that could wreck a game. We could argue about whether him being out would have shut down Trey Palmer. I don't think he would have, because Trey Palmer tore up a lot of people last season. And that's not even, I'm trying not to be a homer about that as much, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Does it matter? I think that he's out is significant for Iowa. But that's the next game after this, obviously. Wisconsin, I heard from my guy. He's on his way. He's setting up his stuff. Right before this, I had another IT explosion that I had to handle real quickly. And it's, I'm old and this stuff gets exhausting. Tom Trewicki says, you don't need a guest, you rule. Love watching from Omaha. Thank you, Tom. Let's see. Marianne Roberts, hello. Linda, come on. Linda, good evening, John. Welcome to the show. There's a song there. And here's the thing. Whoops. Here's the thing. Todd and I discussed doing the Nancy Kerrigan thing to Cooper DeJean, and Todd on Slack a little bit ago goes, you need to hide all the evidence and get everything gone because, now he's out. and it'll come out that we've done this. Richard Fitzwell says, "Holy shit! Did Todd give him the Nancy Kerrigan treatment?" I think that this happened at practice. I think it would have been noticeable if a like 60-year-old kind of large, not well moving guy would have gone out there and clubbed him. It would have been a problem, All right, I'm gonna bring in my Wisconsin guy, and we're gonna start talking about Wisconsin. Rohan. Is it Rohan?
It's Rohan.
Rohan. That's a beautiful. I'm going to try to butcher your last name.
Go for it.
Chakravarthi.
Hey, you hit it. I mean, you hit it on the nose. Rohan Chakravarthi, exactly.
I work with a lot of foreign people.
It worked out.
We usually have nicknames for all of them.
Yeah, that's the case.
Tonight, you're a Wisconsin guy.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I am, the Wisconsin guy.
So Rohan is the site manager for Bucky's Fifth Quarter. It's the SBNation Wisconsin site, and we play Wisconsin Saturday night. And Nebraska has not beaten Wisconsin since 1966 in Madison, but Wisconsin started out decently. And then they lost to Ohio State. And then, for God's sakes, you lost to Northwestern, and then you lost to Indiana. What the hell is going on in Madison?
That is a question that a lot of people right now are trying to figure out. I mean, Wisconsin, if you look at their last two games specifically, I mean, Ohio State you expect to lose, and I thought they played well in that one. But against Indiana, you go into that game as an 11-point favorite, and the Badgers, if we're being honest, they just weren't themselves. They just really flipped the bed the entire game. You end up losing by 6, and then the real deal breaker, which kept players in quite a disarray after the game, was this past weekend. You go in, or you're at home against Northwestern. You get blown out in the first half. This game is pretty much a nothing break, just a deal break in the second half. You only score at the end. Two pretty ugly losses right now that has the program in a state nobody imagined this late into the season.
Well, weeks ago, I've been doing YouTube live shows for a while. And weeks ago, what I said was, you have Luke Fickell, we have Matt Rule, Iowa's always there. Minnesota has PJ Fleck. I figured those were the teams, right, for the Big Ten West. And I said, whoever figures out who they are first is going to win the Big Ten West. And I quite frankly, when I saw you guys hired Luke Fickell, I thought, I kind of wanted Luke Fickell. I think he was a good choice as a coach. What do Wisconsin fans think about him now? Like, what is it, the 10th? This is the 11th game of the season.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been a work in progress. And I'm like you. At the beginning of it, I definitely thought Luke Fickell was the correct hire. And I mean, even right now, I think he's absolutely the right guy to lead this program. It's just many people, I think, anticipated, given the state of the Big Ten, that it was going to be a very successful season for Wisconsin, one that potentially saw you in the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. Clearly, that's not the case right now. The Badgers are pretty much officially out of contention. And so it's been a disappointing year. And I think the coaching staff will also tell you that they've underwhelmed. They've kind of not been up to expectations. And I think it's a mix. I think it's player talent just not performing up to par. And then also I think it's the coaching. I think, there are certain situations where you could be more aggressive. And then offensive and defensively, I think you've gone through some obstacles, some major player injuries, and just different things that right now question, are players bought into the program at the moment? I'm not sure that the answer is 100%. Players, just this last weekend against Northwestern, our star safety, our top player on defense, Hunter Wohler, he blasted the players for their effort. He defended the coaches, saying that there was not an issue really coaching-wise. Instead, he called out the players for their lack of effort and said there might need to be just some weeding out in the program. Right now, it seems like that's the main issue. Effort, intensity, and things like that. But again, if it's a recurring issue, it reflects on the coaching staff.
So this is what Nebraskans, I think, if I had to sum this up in one thing, I mean, I don't know. I'll just say this. I think for Nebraska fans, we look at this and we go, okay, are we going to get a Wisconsin team that's just like falling apart? Because we lost the last two teams we thought were falling apart. Are we going to get a Wisconsin team that's falling apart? Or are we going to get a Wisconsin team that's pissed off and ready to rally and fight for their Badger mascot and Bucky, and the old school rah-rah? Which one of those are we looking forward to in Wisconsin on Saturday night?
At the moment, I'm inclined to say that you're hoping a Wisconsin team bounces back, but that's what I said last week. After the Indiana loss, it seemed like it was a low point for the club, and last week was just, there was nothing about that team that you could say could win a game against Nebraska. If the team that comes out last Saturday comes fighting against Nebraska, there's not a chance Wisconsin wins this game, because that team was effortless, or just played without effort, played without intensity in the first half. I mean, Northwestern went 10 for 10 on third downs up until their very last third down of the first half. They scored on all four of their possessions, and offensively, Wisconsin couldn't really get much going. So I do think that, they're primed for a turnaround. You have players coming back healthy. The issue over the last few weeks, star running back Braylon Allen hasn't played. He played 2 series in the last game. His leg just, wasn't, he has a high ankle sprain, still hasn't been 100%. Chimere Dike, a top receiver, is injured. Tanner Mordecai, it was his first game back. So you maybe think injuries, once those kind of get out of the realm, it starts to click. The issue is there's 2 games left, and you don't know how quickly that's going to happen. I'm inclined to say they bounce back here against Nebraska, but confidence is at an all-time low with the program right now this season.
So what is the deal? Is Tanner Mordecai? Tanner Mordecai was out. Brandon Locke was your backup. I thought he played, I don't know, honestly, compared to everybody else on the Wisconsin team, I thought he played decently. On the other hand, I watch our quarterbacks, and you and I could probably go out and play catch decently compared to our quarterbacks. Maybe not. But is Tanner Mordecai back for Saturday night?
He will play. He will play. Tanner Mordecai is a guy who I think he understands one of 2 things. One, he's a feisty guy. He's played through injuries in the past. That's not something that'll deter him. And 2, it hasn't been the season he's wanted, not for this program, but probably also not for this draft stock. I said at the beginning of the season that I was surprised he returned for a final year. I thought he should have entered the draft. And right now, I don't know if his draft stock's taken, the right jump that he anticipated. So, he's definitely looking to come back. I think that right now, Mordecai is the best option for our team. A lot of people want to see what the young guys, because the Badgers have a couple of high-priced younger guys on their roster for quarterbacks. But unfortunately, just the reason they aren't playing is because they're not ready yet. And I think that can relate to, Braden Locke at times. He showed his issues with accuracy. He showed his issues in the big moments where he was given the keys and just couldn't execute against Indiana. And then the other guys as well. I mean, I just don't know if they're ready, and clearly the coaching staff doesn't think so. So Mordecai is going to be the guy, but it's game 2 from injury. He broke his hand, and It seems like he's fully healed, but this will be his first full week of practice. He hasn't had one yet.
So earlier this year, watching you guys, Braylon Allen, I think, is a fantastic player. He's a wonderful running back, but is he going to play Saturday night?
That's a tough question. I mean, right now, I will be inclined to say that he's a game time decision. And when you talk about the epitome of game time decisions, it's usually ones that trickle to the end of the week. I honestly think he'll be a pure game time decision. I heard from his fellow running back the day he got injured, which was in Ohio State, that it was rumored to be a high ankle injury. Jackson Aker, his backup, said it was believed to be high ankle. Those usually take 4 to 6 weeks. Allen's a guy who's fought through injuries in his career, but it's limited him. When he's injured, he clearly is a shell of himself. And the last 2 weeks, he's tried to give it a go, and he hasn't been able to. Inactive 2 weeks ago, and he played in the first 2 series and just couldn't go last weekend. At the moment, it's still, a little short of that timeline that you'd expect for a high ankle sprain. This might be on the early side of it. And so I think he'll be another true game time decision. The hope is that he can play, but if he plays, I don't expect him to be 100%.
So who takes the place of him, and are they? I don't think anybody you have as good as Braylon Allen, but I really like him. But
yeah,
the second string guys or the third string guys are not near up to snuff with him.
Yeah,
Who
and
are
I
we
mean,
looking at there?
the issue was, early on, the Badgers had a good setup. They had Braylon Allen, and then they had Ches Malusi. Ches Malusi was a good change of pace back, and
Yeah.
Malusi, the issue was he was a better fit in the Phil Longo offense than Braylon Allen, but he fractured his fibula. He's out for the year, and so that means that Allen was the lone bell cow guy, led him getting more carries, him getting a little more banged up, and now you have guys who virtually have zero experience kind of in behind Allen. You have the number one guy will be Jackson Aker. He's a redshirt junior, a redshirt sophomore, I believe. A hometown guy, but he's a guy who plays like Allen with a physical play style, not really much in change of pace, but he's a power back. You'll see him get carries, but another guy, a change of pace guy who broke off last week was Cade Giacomelli. The issue, though, is those two guys, lack of experience, and the run game really hasn't gone to much in the last few weeks. The Badgers have been one-sided, and the issue with the offense, with the way Phil Longo and the quarterback and the receivers run it is, it's a lot of short plays. And so when it becomes one-sided, it's easy for defenses to attack this passing attack and for it to be not as efficient as you'd hope with the run game in play. So that's the main issue, and that's why Braylon Allen is a pretty big factor when he plays for the Badgers.
So Wisconsin, I mean, it's a Big Ten team. You've been known for years for your big, chunky offensive linemen that just open the doors and, run over people. And that's not the case anymore, is it?
Unfortunately, I mean, the offensive line play hasn't just been up to par to what Wisconsin Badgers fans are used to. Jack Nelson, their starting left tackle, he was expected to be, potentially with a good season, a highly heralded NFL draft prospect this year, potentially taken in the second or third round. He's had 12 penalties this year. His technique has slipped, and right now, I mean, overall, those penalties are really, really killer for the Badgers. I think right now they have one guy who's truly been consistent the entire year, center Tanner Bortolini, and that's in his blocking. He's struggled with snapping at times. So I think the overall element of their offensive line has just decreased a bit this year across the board. I think players really, you got a couple of new guys in there. Joe Huber moved from Cincinnati. He's at starting left guard, but I think that the offensive line play has slipped a little bit this year.
I'm looking at our comments. Don't get caught up in reading the comments, just so you know this. We have a feisty crew. But, okay, tight ends and wide receivers. Again, for years you had like one guy that was a good one guy that was a fantastic tight end, and then one receiver that could tear everybody up. What are things looking like there?
Tight ends, this is probably the weakest group Wisconsin has seen in a while. The tight ends, if you look at snap counts from the beginning of the year, they used to play a lot of two tight end sets with Hayden Rucci and then even true freshman Tucker Ashcraft. Riley Nowakowski got in there once he got back, but this is a weak tight end group, and we saw that at the beginning of the year. Two of their top guys actually elected not to come back this year. Clay Cundiff retired for injury. Jack Eschenbach, a sixth-year guy, chose not to come back after spring ball. And so you have some guys who you expected to play not playing, leading to really a lot of one tight end sets and a good amount of zero tight end sets too. Receivers-wise, talent, this is one of the bigger groups the Wisconsin Badgers have seen, arguably over the last 5-10 years. However, the production hasn't been as much. The really talented player is slot receiver Will Pauling. He's by far the number one receiver on the team. You also have an Oklahoma State transfer, a guy who really is a good contested catch guy, a guy who can work after the catch in Bryson Green, but his production's been up and down because he just hasn't been targeted as much. And then you also have the incumbent in Shamari Dike, who has played a lot. He's working his way back from injury. He hasn't played much in the last 2 weeks, but he's a guy. So you've got three solid receivers. That's why, there are a lot of questions as to why the passing game hasn't worked to its fruition. The one main issue, though, with this team is drops. They are among the league leaders in the NCAA with drop passes. They continue to drop passes every single week.
Wow. Okay, here's a comment from Keith Weller. He says, is Feckles, good God, now I've lost it. Is the air raid viable in Wisconsin? It just doesn't fit Wisconsin's identity and what Alvarez did to make them relevant. I don't know if they can recruit at that level to run that system. So the first part, what we heard about was, Fickle, Phil Longo, they were bringing the air raid to Wisconsin, and everybody's like, oh my God, they're going to destroy themselves because we've done this to ourselves, Nebraska. We should be a run the fucking ball team. And we don't know what we are because we don't have an offense really. But I mean, how does the Phil Longo offense fit in Wisconsin? What do you think of the Phil Longo offense? And is it really air raid Wisconsin?
It's a work in progress. And I mean, I think Phil Longo tried to clarify it when he came to Wisconsin, and that the air raid, it wasn't going to be a regular air raid offense. It was more so going to be just a good balance between running and passing the ball. You've seen a clear, though, change. The Badgers have thrown the ball significantly more than they've thrown the ball in recent years. And so you do see a change. I do think that it's tough right now with the Badgers. I don't know if they have the true personnel that they want, especially at tight end. I don't think that they have the guys in the room that they truly want to fit in this offense. They also don't really have that true deep speed threat that Phil Longo requires on the outside. It's kind of two guys that are more similar to each other in Chimere Dike, a guy who is a solid route runner but not really that fast, and then Bryson Green, a contested catch guy, a big-bodied guy. So you don't really have a speed threat either. And so I think that we haven't yet seen what the air raid offense can truly be. And I think that'll truly come once recruiting classes go and things like that. The second part, though, I don't know if they can recruit the level to run that system. That's the part where I'm truly intrigued to find out, because the Badgers had a really successful 2024 class, currently ranks within the top 25 on boards like 247 and things like that. They brought in 21 recruits, and I mean, it's an intriguing style because they brought in 3 high-caliber running backs who fit the change of pace style that Phil Longo's looking for. They brought in a quarterback. They brought in a real high-end receiver in Kyan Barry Johnson, a guy from Illinois. So they brought in a good recruiting class. The thing about Fickle is I think he's going to be able to recruit well, and we've seen that in the 2024 class and then the early sprinkles of the 25 class. But the fit right now, that's still we've yet to be seen kind of thing, because you are right. In the Big Ten, you expect to be more physical. You expect to run the football a good amount more. The Badgers have tried to defy that. Hasn't been the best results yet, but I just don't know if the personnel matches exactly what Longo wants at the moment.
All right, we're going to take some comments. Earlier, Branson Chab gave us a $5 super chat. Good evening, John. Thank you, Branson. Matt Snovak says, Fickle needs to drop the trestle vest. What do you think of that?
So, yeah, he wears this kind of vest every single game day, an interesting vest. Yeah. Some people have had comments on that for sure.
Rule tends to wear these smocks. I think he's still, when he does, I think he looks like an Ewok. That's my biggest complaint with him. I hate the smock things goes on. Matt comes back and makes up for it by saying Fickle will have Wisconsin in the top 25 annually within 3 years. Will they want it? Will they give him 3 years, or him at the stake if this doesn't start coming together? Everybody's so impatient now.
Yeah. I do think they'll give him 3 years, just because Fickle, at least with the early returns with his recruiting, Fickle has now compiled one really good recruiting class, and he even salvaged the 23 class, which comprised of half of his guys and then half of, guys he didn't handpick himself. So I think his recruiting style is going to allow him to get a longer leash. They also paid him a significant amount of money. I mean, upwards of $7.8 million over a 7-year deal. So I do think he sees at least half of that deal with at least 3 years. And I think that that's the big thing. How does Wisconsin kind of transition in the long run? I think that that's going to essentially enable Fickle to keep his job and cement his legacy at Wisconsin.
Okay, Minnie, who's a regular and a member, says, I like how Hunter Wohler called their team soft. Makes me feel pretty good. Go Big Red. There you go. We need more of that falling apart thing. Okay, I took that one. And then we got Matt Snovex taking all the questions. Okay, he says we should do a nil deal with Zoloft. I'm sure he's referring to him. Well, he might be referring to either team. Zoloft is antidepressant, if I remember correctly. But certainly Nebraska with our offense, we could do that. But how is Wisconsin's nil look? I mean, you've seen PJ Fleck complain about nil. Several other coaches complain about nil and how they can't pay players and they're being poached and stuff. How is Wisconsin doing in that department?
Well, Luke Fickell understands that it's just a part of the college football landscape. He hasn't complained really about NIL at all. Instead, he hasn't necessarily said outwardly embraced it. It's just he's just understood it's a part of it. And I think that NIL did play a good amount, especially, when it comes to transfer portal. I think that that's where you'll see NIL kind of coming into play. And the Badgers, they were very busy in the transfer portal, landed about 15 transfers this past offseason. And so they're entrenched into the NIL business. That's how you get some of the high-priced recruits. But, I mean, NIL will definitely be a debate that continues to go on for the foreseeable future.
So defense. First of all, Jim Leonard left, right? And he left because he wanted to be the head coach and he didn't get to be the head coach. So he said, the hell with this. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
pretty much. Yeah.
Who's the defensive coordinator?
It's Mike Tressel. He was Luke Fickell's guy back at Cincinnati.
And how is he doing?
Work in progress as well. Just like I said with Phil Longo, it's a work in progress. I do think that it's one of two things. One, like with Longo, I don't think he has the personnel to run his preferred system. Tressel has this unique dollar package where he essentially likes to play with three safeties, play lighter in the box, and then have one of his safeties essentially serve as a safety hybrid outside linebacker in a dollar role where you can do a multitude of things. The Badgers initially started the season running that package, running with three safety sets. They've trimmed that down. They've kind of gone to a more traditional 3-3-5 because they just don't have the personnel both up front, because it requires you to have guys that can hold their ground up front. They don't have that right now. And they also don't have, capable guys overall to where they can run that package. So that's a question where Tressel will kind of have to figure that out, and the Badgers will have to figure out their personnel later on. But I think that, the coaching has also been questionable at times so far. You just point to this last game. I mean, you can't allow a team to go 10 for 10 on third downs. I thought they were a little predictable with a certain third down package that they consistently tried to run. Players acknowledged that was a package that they were specifically targeting for those situations, and it didn't work. So I think coaching-wise, I think it's been, up and down. I think that there's certainly been struggles for Mike Tressel. But again, just like you do with Fickell, you kind of do have to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, understanding that in second halves, his team has shown up to play, being able to shut down opponents, and given the personnel factor where he hasn't really played his preferred defense.
So let's go back to that whole thing where you can't do things up front. Let's say you're going to play a team that should never throw the ball ever because they're terrible at it. And somebody did ask earlier, can your defensive players catch the ball if it's thrown to them?
We've seen some interceptions. It might depend on the person who's catching the football, but we've seen some interceptions here in Wisconsin. They've been a little dry as of the last few weeks, but maybe there are a few balls going their way this week.
Wow. There you go. Not if we don't throw them. And that's the thing.
That's true. That's true.
So if we run the ball like 60 times and throw the ball twice, what do you think? Can Nebraska run the ball on? God, I got to get this fixed.
Okay. Nebraska running the ball on Wisconsin pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that they can. Honestly, right now, I think one of the biggest weaknesses with the Wisconsin defense is their run defense. I think that they're just unsound, both discipline-wise and then talent-wise. I just don't know how sound they are defensively to counter the run. The run game has been an issue in weeks past. They've gotten beat. With stretch runs to the outside, they've gotten beat over the middle as well, and it points to the personnel on the inside as well as the effort in which they're playing with. The Badgers aren't a great tackling team. They haven't been over the last 2 years, and that has led to a lot of missed opportunities on that end, especially in the run game. They've also, been undisciplined in the run game with certain run fits, and so that's caused some struggles. We know that Nebraska, they have an ability to run the ball. And the number one issue is they've also got quarterbacks who can run the football. The Badgers have struggled to contain that quarterback run. And I think that that's going to be a factor in play this week if that occurs for Nebraska.
Well, the neat thing about our offense is we have no idea. You can't know who our quarterback is going to be because we have no idea really either. Our Heinrich Harburg is out with a high ankle sprain is what we've heard.
Right.
Jeff Sims, nobody ever wants to see again for any reason. And I'm guessing he's going to start the game. And then listen, we turn the ball over because we're giving people in Nebraska. We are givers, and we've been givers for a while. We've been givers this entire season. So I think for every Nebraska fan out there, just accept the fact that we're going to have 2 to 3 turnovers. Just make sure they're on the Wisconsin side of the field so we can get upset that we didn't score instead of letting them score right away. So that's how that part's going to go. Going back to the defense, you said your defensive line isn't up to snuff. Name some defensive players that are at least standing out, or they're a cut above everybody else, and they're the guys that apparently we need to Nancy Kerrigan them out of the game early or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear. Wisconsin's star player is Hunter Wohler. He's probably one of the lone bright spots of that defense at the moment. Hunter Wohler he's a phenomenal player this year. He's a guy who flies around. He's really, when we talked about that dollar role, it was more versatile role where you can drop back into coverage, you can play near the line of scrimmage, you can do a lot of different things, and that's what Hunter Wohler is able to do. He can play near the line of scrimmage, consistently around the ball. He can also make plays in coverage, and so he's kind of the heartbeat of this defense. He's able to do a lot of things. He has 2 of the team's interceptions this year, leads the team by far in tackles. I think he's a guy who teams are going to look at. Some other players, I mean, James Thompson Jr. on that defensive line, he's been a solid pass rusher at times, more so at the beginning of the year rather than as of late, but he's a guy who's played kind of in the 3-tech, 5-tech role, and he's a guy who can see different variations of snaps, usually leads the defensive line in snaps. He's another guy. But the issue is guys just have been kind of inconsistent on the defensive end. The linebackers who were seen as a positive going into the season, they've been up and down, a lot of missed tackles there and some missed assignments. And more importantly, they get beat in zone coverage in the passing game with failing to fill out their zones a lot, which was an issue in the Northwestern game. I don't know how much it'll be an issue in the Nebraska game, but Northwestern had a quarterback who hadn't played in 2 months in Ben Bryant come in and complete a number of passes in that first half. I think he went 9 of 10 or 12 of 13 or something to start the game. And so we'll see how it goes. But the name that I'll definitely highlight is Hunter Wohler.
Okay. Richard Fitzwell says the enemy is trying to give us hope. Do not trust his honey words. I agree with this. You're talking about a guy that could actually come in and complete 9 of 10 because he could actually throw the ball to where he wanted it to go. I don't know if we have that guy. That's so. Have you been paying attention to Nebraska at all?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
which is why I don't know if especially if it's Jeff Sims, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I believe he has 6 interceptions this year on like 45 passes.
Jeff Sims?
Yeah.
20 or 30. I don't know what it is. I think, I looked at the statistics earlier and it was like he's had 12 or 20 drives. He's turned over the ball on 50% of his drives. Nobody wants to see him play. We want to see Chubba Purdy start at quarterback. I am guessing there's it's tougher mentally, I guess. I don't know what the hell is going on with our coaches. Well, I do. We have, you know what? We have a really good football team, except we'd have it like a negative quarterback.
Let me flip it on you then. What have you believed about the Matt Rule experience through the first 10 games of the season? Because you guys have a first-year head coach as well, who's pretty well heralded before coming to Nebraska.
I looked at that, and like I said, I would have liked Luke Fickell to come to Nebraska. Matt Rule, I'm glad is at Nebraska. I mean, if nothing else, he sounds really good compared to that guy we fired who threw everybody under the bus and will always throw everybody under the bus. We don't allow that kind of profanity on this program, sir. You can say all the effing bombs you want, but don't say that. But I think that he's a good coach. I think we're going in the right direction. I think a lot of people are very upset with the offensive coordinator. But the honest to God truth is we've had so many injuries. We have, I think, 2 starters left that actually started the season, or 3, because we've lost our two top running backs. We lost like 3 receivers, 3 offensive line. It's been nasty on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, the defensive coordinator has taken a defense that was, well, not very good, and he's turned them into a very, very good defense. You know, people can't run the ball against them very well. They've given up few explosive plays now because the offense can't score, you know, because that's what they're supposed to do, and they can't do that. The big plays they've given up have cost us dearly. But I mean, when you look at the defense, they're giving up very few points per game, very few explosive plays, a good amount of sacks. They get a lot of tackles for losses. But then you know, on the offense, you go, oh my God. You know, I mean, there's people out there with I could ask our comment section and say, should we just run the ball all the time and then get 2 yards of carry and punt like Iowa does? And I'm guessing that a lot of people will go, yeah, let's do that. Just not turn the ball over and we're going to win. But I think overall, Matt Rule, I think most people are pretty happy with him. I think it's a realization that, you know, they have a ways to go, and we're playing in the Big Ten West. And I mean, let's face it, we could take an all-star team and put them together and play like Michigan or Ohio State, whoever wins the East. And that would be the final blow, you know, the final thing that the West could do against the East in the last division championship, which brings me to, what do you think of all the teams? You know, how do you see Wisconsin fitting in with all the teams that are coming from the Pac-12 and they're not slouchy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it undoubtedly makes just Big Ten competition better, but also much harder. I mean, Washington, USC, and Oregon are no slouch. Those are two teams in the top 6 of the AP Top 25. You might have 5 teams, you know, in the top 10 in a given season with those two, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. I think it makes it tougher for sure. But I also think that's something that the Badgers want. I mean, they want to embrace competition, and I also think that it provides more opportunities for recruiting, because when you talk about recruits, they want to play in the biggest games, and that allows you to play in bigger games. The Badgers, like I said earlier, they've done well with themselves in the recruiting platform for this upcoming cycle. They're in the top 25. They have 21 recruits. They've got a number of 4-star recruits and some guys who will likely be on NFL rosters when their collegiate career is done. So I think that they're going to start recruiting well. I'm very curious to see how the recruiting begins to translate, though, when the bigger programs like a Washington or Oregon enter the Big Ten, and how obviously the recruiting translates to on-field production, because that's the main reason Luke Fickell was hired. We want to see those recruits, those 4 stars and 5 stars, live up to their billing, because the 2021 class, which was Paul Chryst, our old head coach's best class, has been pretty disappointing. All of the top recruits from that class have kind of flopped out. If you look at it, our number 1 recruit, I believe, was Logan Brown. And I think that he's no longer with the team. He was dismissed from the team, and so he's gone. You talk about some other players. Nolan Rucci he was the number 1 guy. He was a 5-star, the number 17 player in the nation. He hasn't seen the field yet. A lot of potential, likely to be a starter next year at left tackle, but hasn't seen the field yet. Riley Mullman's seen the field at right tackle. He's been all right. Hunter Roller's been solid. But, I mean, you look at the top recruits, and it's been an up and down class. A lot of hits, but then a lot of misses as well in this class. And so that's where you kind of look at it and you hope, how do you kind of translate it to where those top recruits are doing as you anticipate at the collegiate level?
All right, we're going to take some comments. Okay, defense, catch the ball. We did that one. Oh, boy. If you want to feel better about yourself, Rohan.
Uh-oh.
Here's James Marshall saying playing Sim Saturday would be like taking a car that you know has mechanical problems and putting it on the highway. Some people like to live. See that as a challenge. Okay.
That would be. I'll say this: whoever the quarterback is, I do think that it'll be an intriguing battle between two programs who have disappointed a little bit at the recently as of late, and so I'm intrigued to see how it ends up going.
Ethan Bunner. Nebraska is in denial over how bad our offense is. Iowa is not. That's why Iowa has the better record. This guy must be an Iowa guy. Because we get people in from all these other programs in here to bash us. I don't think anybody in Nebraska is in denial about how bad our offense is. But I think that, Ethan, I think that our coaches understand that if they're going to get better down the road, they still have to run offensive plays like they're going to run them in the future, so that our young receivers get exposed to running those plays and can be taught what they're doing wrong. There you go. And that Iowa is not. Well, I think your head coach must be, because he kept doing the same damn thing over and over, which is number one, hiring his lousy offensive coordinator's son and not recruiting quarterbacks, apparently, other than getting one guy out of the transfer portal in like the last 50 years. But if you're ever on here and Iowa people come on, just bash him, Rohan. Just kick him in the ass. Let's see. Richard Fitzwell with a real uplifting comment. He says, run the ball, punt to win. Passing is a death sentence.
Now, this is something that Iowa would say, because this is exactly the strat they used against Wisconsin to beat them. Run, punt at the 50-yard line, and then just pin them and hope to do it again, in the next play.
The other thing that we could do is this. Is we could get like to the 50 and then have like a 3rd and long and throw the ball on a pass play all the way to the end zone. And if it doesn't get to our guy and your guy catches, is the same as a punt. We do have some speed guys that you should be really afraid of. If the ball hangs up in the air for like 10 seconds, like a punt, they might be able to run under it and fight your guys off for it. So that's certainly something to be worried about. I mean, okay. Matt Snovak again. Well, I just clicked off his comment, for God's sakes, and dismissed it. Okay. Ethan comes back and says, John, no, I'm a Nebraska fan through and through, but good take. Thanks. Brian Bauer, would this be appropriate to mention fuck Iowa? No, that's next week. But, on the other hand,
Iowa next week?
We do. They're our Black Friday rival. And I think fuck Iowa is good for everything, but we're trying to focus on Wisconsin this week. Let's see. I will say both these teams are at 5-5.
Yeah.
One of them is going to win this game and become bowl eligible, and the other one's going to be sad again. Well, I usually try to go for an hour with these things, but do you cover volleyball at all?
I do. Well, I know of it. Yeah, I do cover it a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to touch on volleyball before we're done. So is there special teams? Is there anything notable about your special teams that we should know about? Kicker,
he can kick, but he hasn't gotten as many opportunities, and he missed a 40-yarder last week. He can kick, though, in the 50s. We've seen it before. Punter, up and down. He can have some really good punts, but he also has struggled a good amount at times this year. True freshman punter, and so, we've seen some ups and downs for sure on special teams. Kick return, punt return. Chamari Dike, the injured receiver, he usually is our starter. We'll see if he does it. But the last 2 weeks, we've gotten a spark out of the backup. Redshirt freshman, Vinny Anthony, he's a guy who's got a good amount of speed. And so that's something that you could look forward to on kick and punt return. But, yeah, it's been average, I'll say, for special teams this year.
All right. James Boardman wants to know who makes the best brandy old-fashioned in Madison.
I don't know this, actually. I unfortunately haven't been in Madison long enough to know this question. But if I find the answer next time I come on, definitely will answer.
Are you a student?
I am, yeah.
And what are you majoring in, like journalism?
No, I actually major in computer science out here.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
You
major
in something you're going to get a job and a career in.
Yeah, but this kind of stuff is something I love to do. So that's why I run the site here. That's why, I try and keep Badgers fans as updated as possible.
Well, I've spent my career in IT as an IT consultant, so I've done this CornNation now for almost 20 years, which is probably almost as long as you've been alive.
Yeah.
So, wow. Iowa doesn't aspire to having an offense. Did that one. Richard Fitzwell says Rohan has been an excellent guest. Give him many thanks and send him a Cobby Corn mug. Oh, I was supposed to put this banner up so you guys would go buy some T-shirts or something.
Cobby Corn.
Cobby Corn. We have a mascot called Cobby. He's the guy. He is the guy. I put this banner up. Now I'm going to take it down. He is, for God's sake. Let's get. Who runs this place? See the corn guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, that's Cobby. You think I'd be prepared with these things, but no. I think one of the things that's happened to our channel is we're getting enough people on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really hard to keep track of the comments. And do all the manipulating behind the scenes. So I don't know. Next year is here you go. Moonbot7 says I agree. Rohan is a good guest. Seems like a cool dude. So are you credentialed? Are you going to be in the press box Saturday night?
I unfortunately will not Saturday night, but I have. Yeah, I've been to every game or every home game and a few away games this year for Wisconsin.
So you'll be in the student section.
No, I'm out of state this week. That's why I'm not going to be in the press box. But no, it'll be a fun one for sure because it's a night game. So definitely it'll be a fun one.
That the eat shit fuck you cheer will be louder than ever.
That one is loud. Like I didn't anticipate that one to be loud, but like even last week, the crowd was just dying. We're down like 14-3 or 21-3, and then that cheer just starts erupting, and then you realize, oh yeah, we're back to Wisconsin kind of tradition out here.
Oh, okay. Oh my God. Keith Weller says, Rohan, can you jump around for us?
I will pass on that, unfortunately. But that's funny.
Okay. Somewhere in here, somebody asked about Wisconsin volleyball.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nebraska's number one because we beat Wisconsin in Lincoln. It was the first time in like 10 tries. Wisconsin goes to Penn State, and they lose. They didn't have Anna Schmreck, is it? It's Anna Schmreck, isn't it? Yeah. Was that? Do you think that was the determining factor in that loss, or what happened?
I mean, I think that there are a lot of different things. I didn't watch the game live. I could only see stuff afterwards because there was a football game that day. But that one was an intriguing one because the Badgers they go out and win the first set. Usually, when they win the first set, they get that confidence. They come back. You look at the next two sets. I mean, it's not like they weren't close. The first set was also 25-23. You come back. The second set is it's an early one, 29-27. Penn State comes back. They win the third set, and then from there it kind of spirals outwards. This one was just one where you might sense the Badgers might be a little more tired. They're coming off a back-to-back. And that was intriguing. I don't think they've had a back-to-back like that earlier in the season. You usually see, a good amount of spacing in between the games. So I don't believe I've seen a back-to-back like that. So you might, understand the travel, things like that might be factors in this one. And so I do think that there were certain factors where it just seemed like the Badgers were slipping a little more as the match went along and ultimately led to the loss. But I mean, Anna Schmreck is also, a big factor as the middle blocker. Her and Carter Booth, they serve well together. And so, yeah, I think you can attribute it to a couple of things, but certainly surprising. You just expect Wisconsin to win in any matchup not named Nebraska. And they not only did they lose one set, but they lost 3 in this one.
Well, Nebraska went to Penn State, and Penn State won the first 2 sets. And it really looked like Penn State was just going to run over us. And then Nebraska... Right. I don't know. I think they have a good mix of young players and Merritt Beeson, who's a veteran, and we reverse swept them. There you go. That's what we did. So Wisconsin ended up with a loss at Penn State out of volleyball. Do you go to the volleyball games?
I've been to a few this year. I haven't been to all just because they sometimes conflict with other things. But yeah, I've definitely been to a few this year.
Okay. If you go to a Nebraska volleyball game, number one, it's always sold out. I don't know how long it's been sold out, but it's always been sold out. But it's like a cult. It literally is like a giant cult. Everybody, they have this like set cheers for everything. And if you don't do the set cheers, they look at you like, oh, we have to, kill this person because they're not a member of the cult. It's really an unbelievable crowd. It's a lot of fun. Wisconsin, one of the comments, okay, my wife makes this comment about Wisconsin, and I've heard this from other people. Our team always looks like they're a bundle of energy and they're laughing and clapping. You guys look like very serious giant robots. Is that wrong? I mean, you guys.
Are you saying the fans? Or are you saying
no? The volleyball players. They always look very just like, they look like.
I think maybe you could say that. I think like the one thing that really intrigued me, because I hadn't been to a volleyball game last year. I went this year. The environment, you can sense the environment of a football stadium with 70,000, 80,000 fans, however might be in there. But the intensity from volleyball fans, it just seems like the intensity level is more in comparison to football, at least at Wisconsin, from the matches that I've seen. I went to Ohio State earlier. I've been, to a few, and that's something that I noticed. And so it is intriguing that you point that out, but I think I can resonate with what I've seen from the fan base itself. I think that the fan base for volleyball has been amazing for Wisconsin.
Okay, James Boardman asks, how many people will show up for the game since it's the beginning of the deer hunting season?
I don't know if deer hunting is the reason that people won't show up to this game, given the disappointment that Wisconsin's kind of faced the last two games. I think Badgers fans kind of just need a reset, because not only did the football team lose pretty uglily in the last two, the basketball team just had their worst loss of the season and probably in a while. They just lost to Providence by 13, but they were down 25 in the second half. It was not pretty at all. And so it's been a rough few weeks for Badgers fans. We'll say that.
Okay. Is there anything else we haven't covered about this game?
I think we've covered most. We talked about the offense. We talked about the defense, coaching, even special teams. Yeah, I think we've got a good amount of this.
Well, is there any kind of eye protection you wear to watch Big Ten West football? That's, because the last few weeks, I turned over and watched Wisconsin Northwestern. I thought, okay, maybe I'll see a game where my eyes aren't just bleeding. And no, it wasn't. My eyes were still bleeding. Is there any kind of special eye protection, anything you do to prepare yourself for the hideousness and the nature of Big Ten West football?
Yeah, if I'm at home, it's called the remote. I turn it off and I look at the blank screen, because that's what Big Ten football is all about. So that's what you kind of do, and then you wait until November 30th or something. You turn it back on, and then you see Michigan, Ohio State, because that might be the only game with some true fireworks in the remainder of the Big Ten slate.
Okay, do you want to make a prediction? Yes,
boy.
You do.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah.
You see, I said Wisconsin. I feel
here's the thing. You should always take people up on these challenges, because you're going into IT. You're not going into journalism. You're going to have a job.
Yeah. So what I usually do is I predict the spread. And the last 2 weeks, I thought the spread was just absurd. Against Indiana and against Northwestern, I didn't know how the spread could be 10 or 11 points against Indiana and then 11.5 or 12 against Northwestern. So I didn't pick Wisconsin. I picked the opposite teams. They've both been right so far. Maybe not to the level that I anticipated. I did not expect a loss in either game. I expected, a closer matchup than the spread indicated. It's 4.5 points in favor of Wisconsin right now. And usually I'm inclined to pick against Wisconsin, given how the last 2 weeks have went. Unfortunately, Nebraska just frankly doesn't have a quarterback right now. And I just don't. The last time we faced a team without, that element was Iowa. And I think Wisconsin was able to shut that team down a good amount offensively. I mean, most teams are able to. If you can't, that's a big issue. And so I don't know how much Nebraska truly is going to be able to score in this one. And while I don't know if Wisconsin, honestly, is going to be able to score that much, they scored 10 points with 7 coming in garbage time this last week. They scored 14 the week before. I do think that some of the execution is going to be better because players seem like they're going to be able to turn it around. And I think Braylon Allen, if he plays, will be more effective than he's been with the very limited time he had last week and nothing 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to predict a Wisconsin win, but I'm going to take Nebraska on the spread in a close game. I'll go for that.
So you'd say like let's say 20-17.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get 20-17 in terms of that much amount of scoring, I'll be happy. But yeah, let 20-17, something like that sounds good.
I'm going to go for a Nebraska 14-12 win.
Oh man, 14-12.
Yeah, why not?
The bad part is we could see that happening, but 14-12. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And everybody would walk away and go, well, thank God this season's almost over. And then one team would go away happy because they're bowl eligible, and the other team's going to go away very sad because they still, for us, we have, both of us have 2 games to win one to get to a bowl. And, who do you guys have, you have Minnesota last. You have
and Minnesota is also still bowl eligible. So if we lose this one, that one's going to be fireworks for sure.
And it's for the Axe.
Yeah. Well,
apparently PJ Fleck took to bed when he won it.
Oh, I heard that story. I mean, when I heard that, I mean, PJ, I know you bought into the program there, but come on, man, why you got to say that out loud? All right, man, but yeah.
Okay, one more question, Keith Weller. Is there a solid quarterback in the Big Ten West? I think Tanner Mordecai, once they get, how many years of eligibility does he have left? 2?
He's done actually after this.
Oh,
one.
He is.
This is the 6th year, so there's going to be a new quarterback in Madison. But yeah, he's done after this one.
Well, we know that there isn't a solid quarterback in Nebraska, Iowa. Let's see, we could go through the list of teams. Northwestern has, kind of a serviceable quarterback. I guess they played much better. I go for Hudson Card at Purdue.
He's probably, I would assume he's probably been the best one this year, because definitely not Minnesota. So, I mean, it's either, surprisingly enough, it's probably either Hudson Card or Tanner Mordecai right now. And that probably tells you the level of quarterback play in the Big Ten West at the moment.
Okay, Greg will be having the 5-Cart podcast tomorrow night. I will be on my way back to Lincoln, and so that I will not be participating in that show because I have some family matters to take care of in Lincoln, Nebraska this weekend. So that's what's coming up on our channel. I hope to publish a video tomorrow that, well, I'll be honest with you, Rohan, you don't know this. I did a video about my death and recovery, and it's been bugging me about publishing it for a while, and I'm going to publish it tomorrow. It's not going to be about college football. Rohan, in 2015, I had a heart attack and I died, and I was dead for 20 minutes. I have a brain injury, and it's made me much more mouthy than I used to be. That's a lie. I have always been this mouthy, but tomorrow I'll be publishing that thing, so you're prepared for it. You guys can comment on it. It's not going to be about college football, but it is going to be about my life. There you go. Any final words, Rohan?
No, I mean, this was a phenomenal show. I appreciate your time, you hosting and having me on, and definitely, well, I don't know if excited is the right word, but intrigued to see how this weekend Sunday or the Saturday battle is going to come out.
Maybe in the off season, we'll do a piece on artificial intelligence taking over the world.
Definitely. I'm down for whatever.
All right. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for everybody for the support. Y'all take care. Go Big Red, and we'll see what happens Saturday night. It's going to be fun one way or another. All right. Take care.